Okay. So I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the West Basin Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors of West Basin Municipal Water District. And for starting the meeting, Mr. General Manager, could you see if we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Don Deere. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here,
Director Scott Houston. Director Tommy Favai. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Any public comments today?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak on a public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests.
Thank you. And do we have any presentations today?
Staff has no presentations.
So then we will get into the action calendar, and I do need to announce that I will need to leave the meeting at 4:55, so we may not get through all of the information calendar, but hopefully we will get through the action calendar. Oh, because the rest of the board can stay, but I'm just saying, I will leave the meeting. So with that, we will consider procurement of a reverse osmosis membrane for the West Coast Seawater Barrier Treatment System. Mr. General Manager, would you please introduce the item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 3. And for this presentation, we have Susanna Lee, our Manager of Engineering.
Good afternoon, directors, and staff was ready to present in a little bit more details, but aware that you have a time constraint, so I can be brief. This item is relating to procurement of 4 of the 6 our trains membranes for the barrier systems. And our trains 2 and 9 membranes were procured in 2022 and were replaced in late 2023. At that time, barrier system production was not at the needed capacity that we need. So staff had delayed the procurement of these remaining 4 trains till now, with anticipations of ramp up of barrier production in the next few months. These membranes are in need for replacement. And with that, we currently, with the 2017 and 2018 pre-qualification testing, there are 4 pre-qualified membranes that were qualified to be allowed to participate for this procurement. Out of the 4 pre-qualified membranes, staff received bids for two of the membranes, as shown on table 2 in the packet. The DuPont membranes, however, the bid for that membranes was deemed non-responsive because they took exceptions to West Basin's warranty requirements. So that leaves Toray membranes as the only responsive bid at a unit price of $400 per membranes. With that, I'll be glad to give the recommendation that the board authorized the general manager to enter into an agreement with Toray membranes to supply 2,604 reverse osmosis membrane and associated spare parts for a total not to exceed amount of $1,145,955.67. Glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Director Deere, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Bishop.
Director Gray, do you have any questions?
no, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll try to keep them brief. We're just purchasing membranes now for the barriers and Chevron. Indirectly. Okay. So on the, what's the cycle of this membrane replacement? 5 years?
5 years for our normal our membranes, but with the Chevron contracts, it's every 3 years.
Is that because of the membranes or is that because of the contract? All right. And then my other question, is since you really only had one bid, or did you get the other bid from DuPont and it was unresponsive? What was their price?
I have to check.
Have to look it up.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have, I know it says Tory member in USA, but are these manufactured in USA?
Yes.
Okay. But I don't have any other questions. If you just let me know what the cost difference would have been had, DuPont been okay with our warranty requirements. All right, so we will move this item forward. Okay, moving on, the next item is renewal of electricity generation analysis and direct access agreement. Mr. General Manager, would you please introduce that item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 5B begins on page 14. And for this presentation, we have Jason Cohn, our operations and analyst 2.
Good afternoon, directors. Thank you, Jay. In the interest of time, I'll skip through some of the slides for the presentation. A lot of them are familiar from last time when we presented to the board in August of last year. Where the intention of the item is to detail exactly how much we've saved during this 3-year journey for locking in our fixed generation pricing and what our options are for the future. So we can, if Desiree, if you wouldn't mind going to slide 17.
While you're doing that, so, can you record that Director Fave has joined the meeting, please?
Thank you. So this details our current price, which is $81 per megawatt hour. We've total saved around $865,000 since entering the program. That's 3 years of savings for one particular account. That's ECL that we've estimated. And you see here on the presentation, we have 3 different options, and we're recommending the one in the middle with for $92. But there are different terms. First one is at 15 months. This is which is essentially a 1-year term. The 27 and 39. The odd numbers are to match our budget cycle, but essentially they're 1, 2, and 3-year extensions. Next slide, please. Staff will be recommending the 27-month option, which is estimated to save approximately $1.6 million over that term. It's at $92 per megawatt hour. The estimated savings includes a PCIA savings as well. PCIA stands for the Power Charge and Difference Adjustment, which is a credit or a charge from SCE. In a sense, they pre-procure our energy 20 years ahead of time, and they don't anticipate their customers going out and buying the generation sources. And so they say with that extra generation that they bought in advance, they have to sell that back to the market. And depending if the market will pay more or less for that pre-procured energy, they pass those savings or those costs onto us. We anticipate that because they locked it in such a long time ago, there should be savings assumed with that. So that is included in the 1.6 million. And with that, just in the interest of time, I'd like to read the recommendation and answer any questions, which is that the board authorized the general manager to enter into a commodity master agreement provided in attachment B with Direct Energy for the supply of electrical service for a 27-month term at a fixed rate of $92 per megawatt hour. Thank you.
Thank you. So Director Gear, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank
Director Fave? No question. Director Gray, I'm sorry, President Gray.
No questions, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. You're estimating, and you said it's anticipated, savings of, if we go with option B, 2-year agreement, 27-month agreement, that it's $92 a kilowatt hour that we'll be paying for power.
Hmm.
Is that guaranteed?
But not guaranteed, just estimated.
And I'm a little concerned right now because we're living in kind of turbulent times. And I don't know what's going to happen to electricity in general in terms of generation and where that generation is going to come from, given the current administration's chaotic directions that they're providing, if I can be so bold. So if we're not realizing those savings, do we have an ability to terminate the contract earlier, or are we locked in regardless? And it may be that because of the type of generation that they contracted to buy and some of the actions of the current administration, that generation becomes more expensive than anticipated. That's my concern. And I don't know all of their sources,
Sure.
but I would imagine that quite a bit of their sources are green sources, and they are being targeted.
Right. And a very valid concern that we've also considered as well. You make a very good point that California does recommend that a certain percentage of our generation energy does come from green sources that are located specifically, which is why it's a lot more expensive than if we were to have a contract in West Basin, Nevada, for example. With the rates that we are presenting today, the third-party supply company, Direct Energy, has agreed to lock in these rates. If they do become more expensive in the future, then obviously we would still only pay the $92 per megawatt hour. The rates that we've been seeing, we've been calling the supplier every month for the last 3 months, and they've started from around $120 per megawatt hour down to the 92 that we have for you today. They are trending up, but they have agreed to lock in this $92 per megawatt hour. It's pretty close to what we were locking in 3 years ago. Before, at that time, we had locked it in at $81 right before some of the conflicts in Ukraine. And so there was some uncertainty about supply then as well. But the 92 is fairly acceptable for the 3 years that we have.
All right, so that's part one. The part two is if for whatever reason things don't work out and we look at things and say this is not a really good deal anymore for West Base, do we have a termination that we can terminate the contract earlier without a penalty?
No, this would be locked in.
It is locked in, so we are locking in
That's what I said.
a 2-year contract.
All right, that's the point. Yeah, it's also worth noting that if we were to terminate our contract with Direct Energy, and for whatever reason, if we had that option, we would then have to go to the market
Right.
to purchase. That could also be a little bit uncertain as well. That agreement, because we've entered into the lottery to join the direct access program, if we were to terminate our contract, that means we would be put back in this, the best way to call it is like purgatory, where you would have to buy energy for 18 months at market rate.
And market rates may or may, depending on source, may be cheaper, may be more expensive.
Correct.
And it's, right now, all I see is uncertainty. And so that's why I have the question, is locking in any long-term agreements. I'm just concerned.
And I think it's also notable to mention that the most valuable part of having a fixed generation cost model is that it provides some predictability for the district in terms of budgeting. We anticipate a certain amount of energy that we tend to use over the year, and so it makes it very predictable budget cycle.
Sure, I would add that, staff discussed this item prior to the committee, obviously, and one of the discussions we had was whether we should recommend a 1, a 2, or a 3 at the rates shown, and we kind of just split the difference in the middle, right? 3 felt like
It looks like,
3 felt like it was too long to given the uncertainty and the volatility, but 1 year also felt like we may not be able to take advantage of the ultimate savings given how long it might take these decisions made by this administration to really affect the market. So for no real good reason, that's why we're here to recommend the 27 months. And I would add that the estimated savings, Jason, maybe you could remind us, that is the savings against the estimates that we would expect SCE to continue charging for the next 27 months, correct?
Correct.
so the other thing is, once we lock in this rate, if there are other surcharges that SCE brings to bear in the next couple of years, as a result of some of the challenges they're facing currently, well, those surcharges, which are not necessarily applied to power, they're like the surcharges if you look at your presentation, which we didn't share, but there's a surcharge for fire and a few other things. Um, will this, agreement anticipate locking that in at whatever it is now, or they would pass that through and we will pay more?
That's correct. SE would pass that through and we would pay more. So we're only focusing on the generation side, which is how much we use at the time we use it. But anything additional that the CPUC authorizes or through CAISO authorizes, then that would be passed on to the customer as well.
So when we're locking in this rate, we're kind of locking in the rate, but we're not 100%. But
Yeah,
there are,
I think it would be good if Desiree, if you want to go to slide 6, the presentation, and I can show you kind of detail line by, not line by line, but some of the things that make up our bill. We're really only focusing on the blue section, the generation charges. Excuse me, the demand charges, I'm sorry, yeah, the demand charges, the delivery charges in the orange, that'll still remain. Which includes, you can see on the right, it includes nuclear decommissioning charges. It includes the public purpose programs, the wildfire funds. That's all included in the orange section. So we would only be locking in the blue section or moving that to a different provider.
so when we're talking about the $92, we're talking about generation only,
Correct.
not the delivery. What is it, yes, I do. What is the, if you can do it equivalent, maybe you don't have that right now, but you can come back and provide that. What is the equivalent kilowatt hour for the delivery charges? Just like right now, we're looking at 92 for generation charges. What would be the amount for per kilowatt hour for the delivery charges?
Sure.
If you can just get back to us on that, I'd
Yeah,
appreciate
I'd be
it.
happy to. That would be pretty straightforward.
Okay, if,
Director Alvarez, I got a question.
sure, go ahead.
I think this is to staff. This is my first meeting at the ENO committee, but is West Basin Water District applicable to Clean Power Alliance when it comes to our facility being here in the city of Carson? And does this facility fall under the city of Carson's Clean Power Alliance when it comes to, like, the rates, the different rates that that's applicable to the city of Carson?
Sure, it's a great question, Director. It's very similar. The direct access program we're in is very similar to the CPA. We're, instead of buying it from the CPA, we're buying it from Direct Energy instead at a fixed cost. But previously, before entering the direct access program, our city of Carson accounts were purchasing from the CPA before. So they have like an agreement with SE to purchase their power somewhere else, and the CPA helps them do that.
So since West Basin is a water district, do we get like a really good agreement rate when it comes to energy that we use?
It's historically, it's been pretty good. We've been locking it in at a good time, but it really depends on how the market does. We could lock in a higher rate. One time we were quoted $170 per megawatt hour. And if we had locked in at that time, that would probably be a bad decision. But it really depends on when we decide to start our term.
So this rate that you're mentioning, $92 an hour per kilowatt hour?
Megawatt hour.
Is this the first time that that you've been offered this rate from Southern California Edison?
It's actually a rate offered from Direct Energy, but we've been in the program for about 3 years so far. We've estimated to save at one location $865,000 since entering that program for 3 years. And so now we're presenting an option to extend that contract for an additional 2 years at the 92 megawatt. Yeah.
Just for comparison purposes, you may want to get back to what the rate is per megawatt hours in the current contract versus this new one. So are we paying 89, 92, 98 versus we're looking to pay 92 if we go with option B?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Desiree, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the graph for slide 17. This is the graphical representation of our current rate, $81.87 per megawatt hour versus the three different terms. So we're recommending the 92. The scale is from 70 to 100. So just that section for a little bit more detail.
Dollar an hour difference.
Sorry, one more time.
$10 an hour difference.
That's correct. It really depends also, excuse me, on when we use our energy. We tend to use most of our energy on the off-peak times. I probably shouldn't have skipped the presentation. Yeah, maybe we can go to slide 15, Desiree. It kind of shows the market rate that we've had since entering the program, and the orange line is the $81 per megawatt hour that we've had. So anything above the curve is when we've had a realized savings, and then anything below that orange line is when we've
Paid more than we would.
correct. And so the summer times, that rate is a lot more expensive from SCE, and we were able to kind of capitalize on that with our fixed rate.
Based on that, that's how you came up with $850,000.
Right. We've essentially generated our own bill alongside our SCE bill to see what we would have paid if we stayed with SCE versus what we are paying right now.
Director, I think that's really the key here is that, obviously we don't have a crystal ball to where the market's going to be in year 1, year 2, year 3, but based on the evidence that we do have from being enrolled in this program, and again, compared to SCE's rates for the previous 3 years, we do think that savings is a potential option, right? Or we think it's real. And so really the decision to be made here on which rate to lock in, I don't know that we are really feel strongly about any of them, but we do need to pick one of them in order to continue in this program and to ensure those savings compared to the SCE option.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not quite sure where I'm at. I raised my concerns. And so I'm going to give this more thought. I understand that the recommendation is for the 27 months. But I'm oscillating and maybe thinking, given everything, that the 17 months might be a better option for us. And we just revisit this a year sooner than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, and honestly, I think staff is somewhat agnostic to the recommendation. So if you want to consider it at the board, we're perfectly happy with that. Unless I misspeak there, Jason, are there any significant advantages or disadvantages that you know of certainty between the 1 year and the 3 year?
Sure. I do want to mention one caveat for the 15-month option. The $86 listed here was quoted about a week ago. That was the market rate at the time. Because of the volatility that you mentioned in the market, the $86 might not be available anymore. With the longer terms, the 27 and 39, the 39 months, they were able to definitively lock in the 92 and the 95. So those are actual dollars, but the 86 might not be an option.
Maybe when we consider this in a few days, you will be able to report whatever the latest number is.
Right, which probably
Update
is,
that presentation and update the staff report accordingly. We
right.
do it at the last minute in the
How
rattle.
long does it take to get a quote for that rate for that 15 month?
We can get it same day, but it might be very close to the 92 right now. With the trending up of the market.
So perhaps Monday.
Yeah,
at
that would
the
be
board
fine.
meeting, we
Or even the day of, we can just say, here's what the rate is today when we discuss it.
Okay.
So that, but I'm not sure where the rest of the board will be, but I'll let you know that I'm going back and forth and I think it might be the best push shorter right now.
Sure.
Any other comments?
I prefer a staff recommendation eventually.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I've heard you say is that you want to move item 5B to the board meeting. It'll be placed on the action calendar. Staff will do a quick check on Monday and bring that information to present to the board. And we'll take action accordingly. The board memo and presentation will not have an opportunity to be updated. We need to publish this tomorrow afternoon for a couple of different reasons. So
No, I understand. That's why I said,
so we'll be ready on Monday to discuss.
all right, well, thank you. Next item is a water contract for DCS on-call support service.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item will also be presented by Jason Cohn, our operations analyst too, and it does begin on packet page 44.
Hey, TJ. Good afternoon, directors again. The distributed control system replacement project is designed to address significant issues, the big one that John's working on, associated with our aging DCS through a comprehensive overhaul and with construction slated to begin early in possibly winter 2025. In the interim, it is critical for West Basin to retain on-call support to swiftly respond to system failures. The DCS is a central automation system for our treatment plants, and its impact on operations is substantial, as even minor disruptions in service for our customers. The proposed on-call contract will ensure that critical DCS level tasks can be addressed promptly, and contractors will perform services such as replacing critical hardware, including Ovation controllers, data servers, and historians, performing updates and patches to the DCS graphics and the HMI systems, ensuring operational consistency and troubleshooting, and repairing PLC communications, and performing data link conversions, such as upgrading older vulnerable systems to Modbus API protocols. This scope ensures West Basin can maintain reliability across its facilities and respond effectively to urgent repair needs while leveraging competitive pricing and expert service through a multi-vendor agreement. Solicitation was posted on December 12th, and West Basin received a total of 3 proposals on February 7th, 2025. Representatives from West Basin's engineering department and West Basin's current contract operator, Veolia, participated in the evaluation of the proposals. And as part of the selection process, West Basin and Veolia staff evaluated each vendor's capabilities to perform repairs, rebuilds, and necessary replacements of West Basin equipment. A summary of the final evaluation scores and rankings is provided in table 1 below. As the evaluation completed, there are 2 apparent top scoring proposals. Staff is recommending to award to the 2 top vendors. Awarding contracts to multiple vendors will foster competitive bidding, while also enhancing flexibility to address operational needs as they arise. Notably, the Robusys company proposed a lower average hourly rate compared to Stantec Consulting Services. However, its proposal also includes a $10,000 annual fee for 24/7 support service. And with that, I'd like to read a recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to enter into agreements with the Robusys company and Stantec Consulting Services Inc. for on-call DCS support services for an initial 1-year term at a starting of $150,000 each, with an option to increase funds for a total not to exceed program amount of $500,000. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Director Neer, do you have any questions?
No.
Director Pave, do you have any questions?
No questions.
President Gray, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we're going to be recommending, so you're recommending hiring 2 consultants to do this work. And this is to provide on-call programming, basically.
That's correct.
And the total amount for both is going to be $500,000, or is it for each?
Total program amount will be for $500,000. Each will start off with $150,000 with an option to extend additional $100,000 for each contractor.
Right. So right now we are in the process of addressing the DCS system. And we are moving forward on that on a progressive design build basis. And that's one of the items on the information calendar. So for that, we do have another consulting firm,
That's correct.
and that's Arcadis that we retain to manage the contract. So, and I know that I had questions about Arcadas, and especially the project manager's role and their familiarity with the actual programming of our system and so on. So why are we bringing in a new consultant versus not having Arcadis address this issue as part of their owner's engineer's responsibilities?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. Currently, their owner's agent contract doesn't include this scope in their contract, not to say that they're not capable of it. If they wanted to, they would bid on it if they'd like. But we selected Rovisys and Stantec because in the past, we've had experienced failures of either historians or database servers, and we've had to reach out to either the manufacturer or in this case, or Rovisys through actually our contract operator, paying a little bit of a markup through the OEM to do that. We're looking for more on the ground in person support versus like a consulting.
Okay, I think we discussed some of those items when we were talking about bringing Arcadis on board. And that there is the need, because of the age of, and the manufacturer of the equipment that we have, to go out and scramble when anything breaks down. And at that time, my understanding was that was a big deal, and that we were able to do it, but that was one of the reasons we were moving forward with bringing on Arcadis and moving forward the design build procurement for the DCS improvement. So given that, why couldn't we?
I'd be happy to pass it on to my colleague.
So the Arcadis Owner's Advisor contract is for effectively staff augmentation in the Progressive Design Build project, helping us with the contract, but also design reviews and things like that, more of a consultant-based contract. This on-call services contract is for kind of more boots on the ground, emergency call out to fix and replace technical components. That's not in the scope or skill set.
Director, if I may, I think it's helpful to think about the timeline here. The Arcadis PDB project should set us up in a position shutdowns or emergency situations like we do today. But that project's not going to be online for 2 years. In the meantime, as we do have these repairs that are necessary, really all we're asking for here is the ability to have somebody on board to respond very quickly so that we're not scrambling like we have in the past for these previous issues in order to get somebody under contract, which causes further delay and downtime associated with the system. The 2-year timeline here is intended to bridge that gap because as John said, if the OEOA scope does not include on-call 24/7 availability for repairing our system, but rather just focusing on the future repairs that will happen as part of the PDB process or replacements, I should say. And so I want to make sure we distinguish those. If we had previously suggested that Arcadis was going to be responding to on-call events, then that was our error. That should not have been, you should not have been left with that.
I understand. But to date, we're managing all of this. Sometimes it's an emergency and we have to scramble managing it. So now we're saying that in order to manage it, we need to basically commit to another $500,000 worth of consulting. And that's
Only contracting, right? These are as needed services that will not be used unless we have
we
an
need it, but
need.
we're bringing that on board. We may not use it all, but we're kind of committing to at least have that reserve ready to go. And if you will, have our powder dry and ready to go.
Correct.
So it just seems, from my point of view, that if everything is being managed now, we have a consultant that has some of these capabilities that maybe that And if we had to pay them more, then how much more, and will it be as much more as retaining these two firms?
I'm sure they have these capabilities, these particular skill sets or the experience to be boots on the ground for this type of scope.
Yeah, correct, with Arcadis, but you are right that we are managing it currently, not with Arcadis, we are managing current issues with that system. We are managing those issues by bringing on board somebody like Robosys through our contract operator. So we're paying a markup at the moment. This would effectively move it onto an on-call program with us, where we're no longer paying that markup because we're not going through a third party. It would also move us away from potentially needing to reach out to Emerson as frequently because we have alternative routes for correcting these issues.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a question, Director. I like the local business, the current lowest bidder there. Can you put up that slide again? So the lowest apparent bidder is the local business? Okay. And they're the ones that they ranked in the number one, right?
Correct.
They're actually the highest average rate, unfortunately, but
Yeah, I agree with, having the local boots on the ground. When it comes to, having those skilled and trained workers to actually, when we call upon them and then they're local to come in, take care of whatever, on these type of systems that need to be replaced and stuff like that. So. Yes.
So who's the local one now?
We have the two firms that we're recommending, Stantec
Oh,
and Robosys, are both qualified for our local.
Stantec is local?
That's correct.
You know, they're a Canadian-based company.
They meet our local business enterprise requirements.
Correct.
Their personnel, the folks on the project are based out of there.
But they are a Canadian-based company. Of course, according to some, Canada will be our 51st state.
Very likely.
Director, you mean our local business enterprise requirement states that firm need to have local presence within 25 miles of this building
Or be in our service area.
or be in our service area.
All right, so, I'm not comfortable with this item, but what's the, consensus of the committee?
Go along with the recommendation of staff.
I agree with going along with the recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, if I can get some clarification, based off of the input of the committee itself, that would be yourself and Director Deere. Would you like this placed on the action calendar or would you like it placed on the consent calendar?
I'm okay if you put it on the consent calendar. I may pull it, but
Thank you very much.
okay. So moving right along, we're actually doing very good. Thank you all. Next item is approval of an agreement between West Bay Municipal Water District and the Hollywood Park Residential Investors LLC for Hollywood Park Studio Project. What a mouthful. So, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item 5D begins on back of page 48. And for this presentation, we do have Frank Fuchs, our operations supervisor.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, directors. So this item is to request approval for an agreement between West Basin and Hollywood Park Residential Investors for a site called Hollywood Park Studio. The agreement is to allow Hollywood Park Residential Investors to design and construct 2 new recycled water service lines and to abandon an existing service at their cost. These are 2-inch service lines from a recycled water main to the recycled water service meter. So they're not extremely long pipelines. The review and inspection costs to the district will be paid for by Hollywood Park Residential Investors. So overall, the work that will be implemented will be at no cost to the district, and the district will assume ownership once that work is completed. The site is being constructed within the Hollywood Park development, which is located near the SoFi Stadium. We've included a map of the location on page 51 of the board package. It shows the location of the overall site and the new services. Attached, we've also included the agreement starting on page 52, and this agreement is similar to agreements that the district has implemented in the past for these types of projects. Essentially, the agreement identifies the design and construction requirements, also indicates that the new pipeline will eventually be owned by the district. There will also be a 12-month warranty period with that work. The West Basin review and inspection costs are estimated to be $26,640. This cost will be paid up front per the agreement. And the agreement also indicates that if the expenses are less, the district will reimburse the developer for that difference. And if the costs are greater than that, the developer will pay for the additional costs. The developer is anticipating to start work next month. Once the site is connected to recycled water, we anticipate that the site would use approximately 7 acre-feet of recycled water for irrigation purposes. And they anticipate that they'll actually connect by the end of 2026. With that, I'll read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to execute agreement W3162 with Hollywood Park Residential Investors LLC for the Hollywood Park Studio project. That I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What is the project? A studio, a movie studio?
It's some kind of film studio.
Thank you.
Is it?
Fine.
Mr. Pellet?
Motion to approve.
I agree.
Okay, Director Gray, or President Gray, you still with us? Do you have any questions?
I'm still here. No questions. I'm still listening. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. They're just expanding the system, so. Okay. All right, so then moving on, we'll move to the information calendar. The first item on the information calendar is approval to award a Progressive Design Build contract for pre-construction services for the DCS replacement project we just talked about. All right,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 217. You do have John Leonard, Engineer 2, for the presentation. I would like to note that we have about 12 more minutes. There are a couple of items that I think need to be discussed under the monthly engineering operations report minimally while you're here. And so we'll keep that in mind as John.
okay, so do you want to defer this item?
No, I want this item to go, but
Go fast.
yeah, we want to touch on a couple of other issues before we lose the quorum.
Good afternoon, directors. Thanks, Jay. Here today to present item 6A on the agenda, starts on packet page 217. This was intended to be an action item that we were intending to bring before you today. That's why the title indicates that. We're still finishing up negotiations with the respondent that we're going to recommend. So unfortunately, we've kind of missed the deadline for this. We're planning on bringing that action item back next month. So presentation starts on packet page 228. The next slide. Because we'll be coming back next month, I can skip through this. Effectively, in November last year, the board gave us approval, its soft approval for the RFP for this. This slide gives an overview of our hybrid SCADA system. Again, I can skip through this, but it's effectively the brain and nervous system of our recycled water production. If this goes down, we don't produce recycled. Next slide, please. This gives an overview of the main issues. We've been through this quite a few times before. Effectively, the vast majority of the system is obsolete, has limited support, and if it fails, results in a full recycled water production shutdown. This project concerns the backbone systems at the top of this graphic. Roughly 40% of the hardware out on site, but it accounts for about 80% of the shutdown risk. So we're proposing this project is just to replace that backbone system, and then in the future we'll look at potentially replacing some of the process controls. So here we go through the kind of main points why we chose progressive design build. I'll go into this in more detail next month in the interest of time when we bring back the action item. But effectively, it's a collaborative delivery project model. The aim is to have transparency on both sides and accountability on both sides. Similar to the design build approach that we've used before, but we've never done a progressive design build of the district before. It's in 2 phases. You have your pre-construction phase where you do your kind of design, development of standards and governance documents. And then the consultant provides us with a guaranteed maximum price that effectively says we guarantee that the construction of this project and all the remaining work will be done under this guaranteed maximum price. At that guaranteed maximum price point, we bring it back to the board and we decide if we want to proceed with that or if we want to take the offer. Next slide, please. So this is the scope that's proposed for this contract. You can see that the split between the 2 phases. Project management is standard. Effectively, what we're doing with this project is we are replacing the control system at our sites. And so task 3 there is assessing and evaluating all the different control systems that are out there on the market. The aim is for the the design builder, to come up with a long list of at least 10 different systems that would fit our needs, and then to narrow those down to 3. The proposed or the potentially recommended design bidder that staff may be recommending next month, their plan is to effectively, for those 3, split their team up into 3 and have each part of their team champion and design one particular system. The idea here is to get a fully competitive analysis of the 3 systems rather than relying on whichever vendor has the best marketing team. So that was one of the particular reasons why this team was rated so highly by the evaluation team. They'll then develop the standards and governance documents. This is key. We don't really have control system standards right now, and it's caused some issues on previous projects. So they're going to develop things like cybersecurity standards, operation and maintenance standards to make sure we keep the system up to date, but also standards and specifications that can be dropped into future construction projects, so that in the future we'll be able to pretty easily provide scope to contractors so they know exactly how they're going to integrate into our system to prevent the kind of delays and additional cost overruns we've seen in previous projects.
Hey, John, don't forget the time constraints.
Yeah. So it's a complicated project.
Move towards the selection.
And then design to GMP. So, okay, next slide. This is a timeline showing how we're going to narrow the cost estimates as we get closer to the GMP. Next slide. This is procurement documents and contract information. The negotiations that we're currently undertaking with the selected vendor of the selected team. Effectively, we're still discussing liquidated damages and liability. Control system projects have low contract cost, high risk, and the original contract has unlimited liability in it, which the selected team are struggling to find insurance and bonds. So we're looking to limit the liability, but find a reasonable cap. So that's the negotiation we're still going through right now. Next slide, please. So that's the process for procurement. We will be recommending, provided negotiations conclude in a good pace, we'll be recommending Tetra Tech team. You can see here that they scored higher than the other respondents. They're proposing a team of Enterprise Automation, which is one of their subsidiaries, Rovisys and Southern Contracting. The decision across the evaluation team was unanimous. It was from the West Basin staff from Arcadis, and also an external evaluator from the Water Replenishment District. And the decision was unanimous both in the proposal and the interview stage. Slide, please. This goes through the breakdown of the team. We'll present this more next month, but why we chose them. You can see significant qualifications there and expertise. The main thing here is that they are certified experts in all the major systems out there. For example, Rovisys have installed more Rockwell systems than Rockwell have themselves. Enterprise Automation are one of the highest certified teams in the country on many of the different systems out there, so they're truly system agnostic. Next slide, please. And here's their certifications across the different systems. Next slide. Here's experience that the actual key personnel on the teams have had with different agencies and districts. Next slide, please. Project finances, I'll go through that next month, but effectively we're under budget this fiscal year. We don't anticipate the project budget changing, but effectively we're pushing it more into the next fiscal years. Next slide. Next steps, we can talk about those next month. And then that's effectively it. The next slide would have been the recommendation. So with that, I'll finish the presentation. Any questions?
Okay, any questions? Discussion? Director Deere, you have anything?
No, I want you to move along with this. I go on with the recommendation.
Well, there's no recommendation per se. This is an information item.
Just the
But-
recommendation here.
Yeah,
This would have been the recommendation. We were planning on having this as an action item. But because of the negotiations still going on, we're gonna bring it
I'm
back.
not moving that we do it. I just say I go along with you.
Thank you.
Is this item coming in front of the board on the 24th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could come next month.
Next month.
are some questions, but I'll just follow up with the general manager on this item. Okay, so we will move on to the next item, and general manager, I think I don't know which one you wanted to take out of sequence or if you did at all.
Mr. Chairman, given that you need to leave in 4 minutes, I did want to have staff briefly update you on the PV lateral, specifically the pump station. And so I think Veronica, would you be the one to kind of present where we are and touch on the delay?
So good afternoon, directors. To give you a quick update on the pump station, the construction is ongoing, building is erected, and all the electrical installation of the pump skid is ongoing. There is, however, one component for the panels that is coming late. The manufacturer has basically provided information to their vendor, specifying that the switchboard gear is not expected to arrive until mid-June of this year, which means that with that, the contractor is going to be able to finish the rest of the building. They're doing like all the electrical connections, everything that they can to get everything as much as they can. And then once the switchboard arrives, they will be able to install. And then the next step after that is call SE so they can come in and energize the system. And again, that's a range of time. It could be like immediately they're like quick to respond and they're on day one to get that connection, or it can take them, few days or weeks depending on what their availability is. So following those steps, once SE is there, we will proceed with the commissioning and with the testing. So right now, basically, again, we have gotten word from vendor, as of today, that switch gear is still expected until June. We have placed some calls to see if there's anything that can be done, but again, it's still something that we're trying to see if there's anything that that they can expedite that. So that's for the pump station. For the pipeline, again, the pipeline is completed, and we're also closing our permits with all the entities. CO Torrance is closed, Caltrans is closed. The only one that is open right now is the one with the CO Palos Verde Estates, because we have also a homework, with SCE. They need to come in and energize the system. So we're working with PV and SCE to get that out of the way.
Thank you. I have one question.
Yes.
So the switch here is delaying the project.
Yes.
When was the submittal made and when was the switch here ordered?
So the submittal was actually done on May 2024. And within a week, we provided the responses to the contractors when it was approved. And then the contractor basically placed the order. The contractor was initially expecting to get the piece along with other pieces in December and to start doing the installation sometime in January. And in January, they were notified by their vendor that the piece was not coming until June of 2025.
But the delay is not because of an untimely placement of the order for the switchgear.
It's not, no, it doesn't indicate that. The letter from the vendor basically is referring to supply and demand issues that they're
Who's
having.
the manufacturer of the switchgear?
Schneider. And the vendor is Graybar.
They specifically cited shortages in labor and copper and other essential assembly components as the reason for the delay.
That's pretty standard.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm gonna need to excuse myself, so I will be Director Dealer in charge.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the Director of July has a question. Real quick. All right.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Director Alvarez. My question to the staff is, the vendor that the electrical contractor is working with, are you saying that it's a container issue of receiving it from vessel to land? Or is this an issue when it comes to what, the prior speaker mentioned, that they're lacking material putting together switchgear at a manufacturing facility?
Yeah, it seems like according to the letter, it's more like the material supply that they are, lacking.
Where are we on this?
So I took that one out of order, Mr. Chairman. If we want to go back to item 6B, we can do an overview of the on-call engineering and construction management services.
Sure.
This begins on packet page 244. And again, for this presentation, we have Veronica Govea, our engineering supervisor. And if I could ask, because we do have a new director, if people are jumping in and new speakers are coming in, if you can introduce yourselves by name so that we can start to build the recognition.
Good afternoon, directors. My name is Veronica Govea, engineering supervisor. I've been at the district for almost a year. The purpose of this particular board item is an information item. The engineering department has on-call services for engineering design services as well as for construction management services. Those are like two different teams that we have. In the past, we have had 4 or 5 companies, so depending on the market and the need for the projects that we have in mind. So the last time that we went around to get to solicit these services was in 2022. So we got 6 engineering firms that went under the design engineering services as part of the on-call, and 5 companies that were selected for the construction management services. So as part of construction management services, we also do inspections. So the contracts are about to expire in June 2025. And this information item is to basically notify you that we're in the process of preparing the request for proposals to start a solicitation. And some of the components that we would like to emphasize is that just like we did last time, the dollar total budget limit for the on-call services, we would like them to stay at $3 million, and also have a cap of $350,000 per task order. Now, to solicit those proposals, we will be using our e-procurement system, which is OpenGovs, and make it available for all potential companies. Now, there's an alternate solution that we can have here if the desire of the board is not to go out for solicitation. I have put together a slide or an attachment A in which basically it summarizes the firms that we currently have under the 2022 contracts. So the Serrano, you can go to attachment A. And on that attachment, it also has tables B and C. Tables B and C, those are like past contracts. There's still some open task orders ongoing, but concentrating on table A 2022. As you can see, there's still plenty budget remaining. The original budget total cap was 3 million. We are still with a very healthy purse that we can still utilize. So if the board desires, we can still use these companies, and instead of going out for solicitation of new proposals, we can work with the companies that we have already in contract and get new rates and amend their contracts to extend them for an additional 3 years. And again, utilize them, to the maximum that we can to do those services that we can work with. And again, using a cap for task order for $350,000. So with this, basically, this will end my, presentation. And I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have or get any suggestion.
You've given us an alternative. What's your recommendation?
I think like we can use the existing on-call services because again, we have barely used them. As you can see, there was only like 5 task orders under the construction management firms and 8 under the engineering design services. And again, one of the reasons was because our cap was a little bit, tighter, $150,000, and that kind of limit us the ability to use them. We like for most of the design services, we have to go through Open Gaps to advertise it since it was outside of 150,000. And that was one of the comments, that was received throughout the entire implementation of the project, that the 150,000 was a little bit limiting. So if we can maybe increment, the task budget limit to 350 order, will help us to be able to move projects a little bit faster. Every time that we go for a solicitation on a proposal, it's basically adding another 2 to 3 months. And kind of limits us, on getting all of our, schedules and projects completed within a specific times. So that would be, a staff recommendation.
Director, I would add that, we've got a lot of money left on the existing contracts after 3 years of the original term. And we could go through the entire procurement process again, but just keeping the current vendors who I think staff are perfectly happy with would prevent us from having to do a pretty extensive procurement over again. We can do that if that's the board's pleasure, but ultimately, given the amount of money that we've actually spent in the 3 years that we've had this contract and have more than 2/3 of the contract remaining, it would be just as simple, if not simpler, to extend these contracts for another period of a couple of years.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Director here. So have all these firms that's mentioned on the slide, have they lived up to all their task at hand?
I would defer that to the staff that have managed each of these, but I would suggest, with the exception of the ones that have 0 value, which have not been yet awarded a project, as far as I understand, staff have been pleased with their performances.
Yeah, and it's not for a lack of inability to perform the work, because all of these companies are very reputable and very well, capable for doing, the design work that we need them to do, as well as the construction management. But one of the components here is like, even though we have, a number of construction management firms or a number of engineering firms, when we have a task order that is about to be implemented for a project, we issue a much simpler request to all the companies that are as part of the on-call services. So for example, the engineering firms, 6 companies. So basically, we will send the request for the proposals to those 6 companies and basically tell them, okay, as part of the on-call services, you have already, submitted some information in regards to resumes. We have this project. These are the tasks that we are expected to be accomplished as part of the project. Submit a proposal by X day. So even though they're on-call services and they have been pre-qualified, they still go through the process of submitting a proposal. And then based on that, we form an internal panel to basically help us review the proposals that they submit, do the cost value analysis on what they're providing to us to see whether, one company or the other one, has a much better value on the proposal that they are, submitting. And basically, we go through on that homework. So it's not that there's a company on on-call services and we just go and give them a task order. It's the fact that they also have to submit a proposal, but the process is a little bit less strict in regards to the timing because they have been already pre-selected and gives us the ability to work with them. The same thing with the construction management services. Again, all teams are pretty strong. They bring different areas of expertise. And for example, like those that have 0 is again not because they don't have the personnel, but it was maybe because the other company got it because it was basically 5 proposals and it just happened to be that other companies provided a better proposal.
Mr. Chairman, unless there are any other questions, we can jump into item 6C.
Well, actually, Director Gray, do you have any questions? She's still aboard? She's not aboard? We don't have a quorum then for committee action.
That is correct. And the only other item is that information item.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, this item 6C is our monthly engineering operations update. For this presentation, we do have Barker Masurian, our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations.
Good afternoon, directors. Again, my name is Barkev Masurian, Manager of Engineering Operations. We've met before. This report here, directors, is a monthly update of our engineering operations department, both departments. So the staff report starts on packet page 247. This is a relatively new format that we've started this year, where we provide focused presentations on engineering operation programs every month and on a quarterly basis. So every quarter, the first month of every quarter, we'll talk about capital improvement program and technical planning program projects. The second month of each quarter, we'll talk about water distribution and delivery efforts, as well as water compliance efforts. And the third month of every quarter, we'll talk about, we'll have a focused presentation on water production and asset management activities. We're in March, so today we'll do just that. We have an attached presentation that we'll go over how we're doing on water production and talk about some of the maintenance activities that we have conducted over the last few months. But also,
Markev, I apologize. So we do have 47 slides that I just checked.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Director Deere will be needing to leave, not immediately, but soon.
I have to
So-
leave before midnight. You all ready with your?
I think we could get through
Stand
the
watch.
47 slides before midnight. However, I do want to make sure that we move through the presentation quickly.
sure. So before we get to the presentation, you'll see on packet page 247 and 248, just highlights from our operation department, a brief update on a pipeline leak, one of the projects that's being implemented at the plant, some new connections, recycled water connections coming up in Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes, so on and so forth. And then the staff report goes into the capital improvement program projects, each project with a brief update. We talked about the PV lateral there. We have 2 or 3 pages of updates on each of the projects. So moving on to packet page 253. Like I said, we have a presentation as attachment A that we can go through pretty quickly. Part of this presentation, we're addressing some of the questions that Director Alvarez had last go around about emergency response and storage capacity. So we've incorporated some answers to those questions in this presentation. What we also did this month is also attach last month's presentation. Since committee was canceled, we took last month's presentation and added it to the staff report as well. Just wanted to bring that up to you. On the look ahead schedule for next month for committee, we have next slide, please. We have 3 action items listed here, but game time decision, 2 of the action items that were slated for this month are being added to this list, which is one is an award for construction services for the solids handling improvement project, and another one for the DCS replacement project. In addition to these 3, an on-call pump and motor repair services, fire protection system improvement project award for construction services for that. And then also we're continuing our negotiations with our construction management services consultant for the PV lateral project. We're hoping to conclude those negotiations and bring an action or recommendation for the board's consideration. And then you'll see some of the information items that we plan on presenting next month to the committee. So if there's no questions about those, what we could do is hand it over to Susanna Lee to start off the presentation.
Good afternoon, directors. My name is Susanna Lee. I met you at the last week, so welcome. So the first slide, next slide, please. We'll start the presentation going over the production for the quarter, and as the numbers shown on the bottom right, we're doing pretty well in terms of tracking our budget sales. Some of the highlights would be on the talk about what affected the production this past quarter. We had 2 incidents in January because of fire. We did have an outage, and then this past month in February we did have the leak, which also affected the production. But overall, as the numbers shown, that we're about 1% below budget. And obviously, we do have a project that affecting the barrier production currently. So the barrier production for the month of February and March will be low. So just for your awareness. Next slide, please. This slide is really just to hone into all the different product lines and comparing the production for the past quarter. You can see that barrier was tracking pretty well at our budgeted amount, about 830 per month. And so comparing to March, we're pretty much 0 at this month for March. So just so you're aware. Next slide. This slide is just to show you, particularly on the barrier production. This past year, we've been able to wrap up our productions and injections to our West Coast barrier. Started the year around 6 to 7 MGD. And right before the shutdown, because of the phase 5 upgrade projects, we actually went up to 13 MGD. At the conclusion of that project, we will expect to go back to the 13 MGDs. But overall, like we rested around average of 11.5. Next sections, we're gonna have Jeremiah going over some of the asset management KPIs that we've been tracking. So Jeremiah.
Next slide, please, Desiree. Good afternoon, directors, and my name is Jeremiah Shea. I'm an operations analyst here in the engineering department. And today we're providing a quarterly update to the board and the committee on some of the asset management efforts that have been undertaken by West Basin staff in coordination with the contract operator, Veolia, at the treatment plant. And some of these metrics we're trying to get more sophisticated in tracking over time. The graph on the left-hand side of the screen here just shows the corrective maintenance to preventative maintenance ratio, which is a standard measurement in asset management. It essentially tells us if we're addressing assets by preventing damage from occurring to them by doing regularly scheduled maintenance, as opposed to responding to breaks or repairs, which would be more of the corrective maintenance. And that dotted line you see is that 20% industry best practice for that ratio. We like to keep the corrective maintenance to about 20% of all the maintenance work that we do in order to show that, we are addressing problems with assets before they occur to prolong the lifespan of our assets. We do track also the number of hours that the maintenance team spends performing either corrective maintenance or preventative maintenance. And so this allows us to zoom in and see if there's any issues occurring over time. If we see that we're responding to more emergency maintenance hours, which is on the right-hand side of that graph there, that might indicate that we need to look into certain processes or evaluate what's going on at the treatment plant if that number rises. Next slide, please. And this next graph also shows just the number of emergency work orders that are completed on a monthly basis by the contract operator on the left-hand graph. So you can see that gives us an indicator of how much we're getting phone calls in the middle of the night to fix breaks, repairs, pumps that go out. We like to see that number go down, so we do track it over the long term. And then we also track how long it takes to complete work orders. So that work order cycle time, that's shown in days. That's the time between a work order being assigned and being completed by the contract operator. So another metric that the asset management program tracks here at West Basin. Next slide, please. Here we just provided some examples over the past 6-month period. We queried the number of hours spent performing corrective maintenance, and we actually have a list of the top 10 assets that required corrective maintenance at the plants. So here's just an example. You can see that the RO Train 4 at Chevron for the Chevron low pressure boiler feed required 146 labor hours for the past 6 months. And so we do keep track of these sort of things to see if there's certain processes or equipment that we should be paying attention to that we're spending more time maintaining than we should. And that would inform some of our capital improvement projects moving forward. They may transfer to a capital project if it becomes an issue. Next slide, please. And all of this information is tracked in our asset management system. It is the IPS Infor Public Service module. And this is a screenshot showing some of our assets. This is what we see on our side of things. We can click on, in this example, it's a heater for the Barrier MF CIP tank. We can track work orders, see how often they're performed, they're scheduled, and there's also operator notes included in there if they encounter an issue with a pump or something like that during their maintenance. And so this information is very important for us to track. Next slide. Over the past year, in 2024, Veolia has undertaken significant efforts to update our asset inventory in the asset management software. So these green bar graphs you see here, kind of hard to tell, but green is good. It means that we've completed 100% of updating these asset inventories. So there's Hyperion Pump Station in the top left, Chevron Nitrified Treatment Plant in the top right, Torrance Satellite Facility in the bottom left, and then the Carson Regional Plant assets are shown in the bottom right. So over the course of 2024, we actually had Veolia go out into the field, take new photos of all the assets out there, upload the photos into our asset management system, and verify that we have the right manufacturer, model number, installation date, so that if we do need to repair things, we have accurate information. And next slide, please. And currently our efforts are being focused on updating those assets at the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility. As you can imagine, there is a lot more assets to track and maintain at ECL, just given the size of that facility. So we are making our way through that asset list. You can see that we're about 33% through the total number of assets, which means that we've verified that assets are there. We've taken a photo and we've uploaded it and updated information
in the asset management software. And so here's some of the photos just of our equipment. It's good information in case we're looking up work orders. We want to know what pump broke, where does it look like, so we can get out into the field quickly and make the right repairs. So yeah, our efforts, we should be wrapping this up in 2025 to continue updating all of our assets and making sure that we have a good handle on all of our equipment out in the field. That concludes my presentation, but we're always happy to provide other information if the board has questions on our asset management program. Thank you.
How about these photos?
There are two more
The
sections.
records are keeping? These photographs?
So there are two more sections on the presentation. So the next section is our quarterly maintenance
Okay, go ahead.
photos. If there are any questions that you would like to hear more about, let us know.
Or any questions on the last presentation? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes.
And so continuing our asset management, so these are some of the major efforts that were undertaken over the past 3 months at our facilities to repair, replace, or address issues with our assets. And so in January, we did complete the reinstallation of 2 mixer blades for the backwash waste high rate clarifier number 3. You can see crews there. Crane out, removed it, and we're no longer paying those rental fees, which is good for our budget. Next slide, please. In January, the Torrance recycled water facility, we did have to do some testing and repairs on the carbon dioxide storage system there. So these are some photos of the contractor coming out. We had to clear a blockage in the CO2 tank using a heater and a blower over a couple of days, and we've actually been able to restore the carbon dioxide system to functionality and having no problems with it for the past month. So that was a good success project there. Next slide, please. These photos here, a little less of a good story, but shows our team addressing a leak at the ECL facility discovered in February. There was a major leak on one of our backwash supply lines that backwashes our Title 22 filter assets. And so without this line, we effectively can't backwash our filters, and the water coming out of them, the quality degrades very quickly. And so it's critical to isolate the leak. We had contractors come out overnight. I believe they worked Monday through Friday. We had guys there all night, all times of the night, digging, dewatering, and getting a patch on that pipe. And it's currently now closed up with a temporary repair.
Yes, correct. So right now we have a temporary repair, and staff is still following up to see if there's additional preliminary repair needs to close out this project. And the root cause for the leak, we believe, is also, corrosion and excessive pollution that we're seeing around the plant, partly due to the ferric chloride that we've been using for over a year plus. So we are proposing doing a condition assessment of this pipe and to see if there is a need to replace this entire pipe sections permanently. So that will be a project that will be adding to the new fiscal year.
Next slide, please. And these last photos, they little hard to see here, but these are the Title 22 product pumps, variable frequency drive bus bar installations. And so one of our engineers, Kevin Cullen, oversaw this project to essentially clear up some retrofit wiring that was inside these VFDs. You can see the before and after photos, those cabinets are a lot less crowded. They have a bus bar installation in there, which allows our VFDs to be running efficiently for our Title 22 product pumps, which are critical assets at ECL. That was I believe we're going to be replacing one more of these on our product pumps in the next month or two. So that'll be another success story for us there. With that, I'll leave that to the last maintenance photo.
There's one last section on the presentations that address Director Alvarez's previous request. So I'm not sure if you would like us to go through some of that information or if you have any.
You want to? Yeah, we will. We'd like to have you do it.
So if you go to the next slide, Director Alvarez would like to us to identify some of the storage and backup information of plants. So as the charts show that most of our different product line, we have roughly between 3 to 6 hours of storage on site, with the exception of Chevron low pressure and high pressure, which have a little bit more storage time, given that they are lower daily demand. In addition, for the storage and facility that we have also portable water backup supplies on site. So for Title 22, we can either hook up fire hydrant hoses, and as well, we can also backfill overflow barrier products to the Title 22 should we need additional Title 22 water to supply for our distribution irrigation demand. And so these are just various potable water supply backup alternative for the different plants and product lines. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us. Now then we can move to the next slide for the next request by Alvarez. As at the conclusion of last month board meeting, Director Alvarez would like to see the incident response that we have done the last 5 years. So what this slide shows that we have responded over 250 incidents this 5 years, and the distributions of them as shown on the graph, over 50% is at ECL, and so on and so forth. The next slide shows the different types of incident response. So luckily, I think majority of them are plant work, but you can see that we have electrical issues, we have pump motor failures, and also a significant amount of these incidents were caused by influent water quality issued from Hyperion, or as well as Title 22. So that's the spread of the different type of incidents that we have to respond to. And I believe the last slide should just give you an example of the specific incidents that we actually address. So we're happy to answer any questions, and if you want to dig into more detail for that as well. This information there.
No questions, Director Gray.
None here either. Thank you. Very good.
Well, that concludes our information calendar. Staff has no closed session items, which brings us to item 8, Director's comments and future agenda items.
Director, any comments? Reports were very excellent today, and I appreciate your staying late on a day like this to do that. Anything else?
That brings us to item 9, adjournment.
We are adjourned to the next month's meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.